When you hear the phrase Operation Cat Drop, what comes to mind? Cats falling from the sky? Felines dropping objects onto unsuspecting passersby? Perhaps a secret code name for an undercover project. In this case, reality is far weirder than what your imagination may have come up with. In the early 1950s, there was an outbreak of a serious disease called malaria among the Dayak people in Borneo. The World Health Organization tried to solve the problem by spraying large amounts of a chemical called DDT to kill the mosquitoes that carried the malaria. This effort was successful. Mosquitoes died and less people got malaria. However, there were a few side effects of spraying DDT. One of the first effects was that the roofs of people's houses began to fall down on their heads. It turned out that the DDT was also killing a parasitic wasp that ate caterpillars that ate roofing material. Without the wasps to eat them, there were more and more of these caterpillars. But that wasn't the extent of DDT's side effects. The insects that died from being poisoned by DDT were eaten by gecko lizards, which were then eaten by cats. The cats started to die, resulting in the rat population flourishing, and then the Borneo people were threatened by outbreaks of two new serious diseases carried by the rats, sylvatic plague and typhus. To cope with these problems, the World Health Organization had to parachute live cats into Borneo. According to some sources, as many as 14,000 cats were used in this endeavor, and some even claim that the British Royal Air Force was involved. That is the story of Operation Cat Drop. But where did it come from? And how much of it is fact? And how much of it is fiction? The many versions of the story of Operation Cat Drop, printed in the 1960s, all share one thing in common. They can all be traced back to one man, Tom Harrison. Harrison, an Englishman, first traveled to Borneo to lead an expedition into the jungles for a group from Oxford University. He served as an officer there during World War II and lived there for a while as a museum curator. After the event happened in 1960, Harrison published a 2-page paper in 1965 talking about Operation Cat Drop. However, his story differs in key areas from the truth. What actually happened was this. As a part of an anti-malarial campaign in northern Borneo in the late 1950s, the World Health Organization sprayed DDT and other insecticides to kill mosquitoes. DDT was sprayed in large amounts on the inside walls and ceilings of the large longhouses that housed an entire village. As a result, the number of people getting malaria in the region fell dramatically. However, there were two unintended consequences. There was an increase in the rate of decay of the longhouses' thatched roofs. Why? Because a moth caterpillar that ate the roofing material avoided the DDT, but their parasite, a small wasp, did not. Therefore, the caterpillar population boomed. The second consequence was that domestic cats were poisoned by the DDT because they rubbed against the longhouses' walls and then licked the DDT off their fur. In some villages, the loss of cats allowed the rat population to grow, which raised concerns of rodent-related diseases such as typhus and the plague. To fix this problem, in one remote village, several dozen cats were collected in coastal towns and parachuted by the Royal Air Force to replace the ones killed by insecticide. The most vital difference between Harrison's account and what actually happened is that there is no mention of DDT having an effect on the food chain in the actual story. Harrison's claim that it was the biomagnification of DDT through the caterpillars and geckos that killed the cats has never been verified. There has been one published argument directly addressing the validity of Harrison's claim. In 1971, Thomas Jukes, a strong advocate for using DDT to combat malaria, calculated that a cat weighing 5 kilograms would have had to eat 60,000 cockroaches a day to ingest a lethal amount of DDT, assuming that each cockroach had consumed a lethal dose of DDT itself. Though cockroaches are different from the geckos that the cats supposedly ate, even if you have the number of cockroaches, the number that the cats would have had to have eaten would still be ridiculously high. How did Harrison's story become so different from the truth? One theory is that he was influenced by Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, which covers the topic of biomagnification of DDT. It came out in 1962, in between the 5-year gap of the cat drop and Harrison's publication.